Hello, welcome to this talk of the Eurostar Virtual Day 2025. We're so happy to have you here. For everyone that has been connected from very early this morning, I hope you are enjoying this event. I hope that you are making the most of it, that you're getting very good training. And if you missed any of the talks or you're just arriving now, don't worry. All the talks are going to be available from tomorrow evening in eurostarhuddle.com. It's free to have an account there, so you just need to go there, create an account if you haven't got one, and if you have it, well, you will get them there, as well as you will get an email from me with all the links. So don't worry about it. Everything's right. Thank you, everyone coming from different parts of the world. You need to know that there's more than 1,000 testers signed up for this event from more than 70 countries. So yeah, we have everyone that joins Eurostar from mainly Europe, but there's people coming from Japan, from Iceland, people from America are joining us now. I just saw Timothy there. Hello, how are you, Timothy? People from Austria, Christoph, Susan Suffield was with us in Eurostar. If you went to Tesla, that is where all the challenges and the bug hunts happen. You might have met her there, so it's great to have you here. I saw you before, but we didn't have a chance to say hi until now. Carolina, you've been with us through the full day. Thank you for being there. I'm gonna say it wrong, mainly maybe, but sorry, I will learn how to pronounce it. I promise. But Tanuja. I want to know how the name is pronounced, but you have been sparking great conversations here in the chat, so thank you so much for that. And that's what this is all about. It's about connecting. It's about networking. So we're here to go with one of the most interesting talks that I heard during this Eurostar 2025 in Edinburgh with Shaun in a second. But also, as we're talking about connecting, let's not only connect in the chat, which is great, and some of you have just figured out that you live very close to one another, or that you work very close to one another, and this can spark more knowledge and more talks and more growth. But also, if you want to meet in person, there's nothing like meeting in person. Shaun here was with us in Eurostar and had one topic table, and the possibility of chatting one-on-one with other testers is just amazing. So if you want to meet in person in November, Automation Star is happening, and you're part of our online community. So I love to share with you this code, webinar 10. It applies on the lowest price. So the lowest price is expiring 30th of June. So you want to use it. The cheapest price, the best value, go for it and connect with the people. There's nothing like connecting in person. But now let's go with the start of this talk. And we have here Shaun, how are you doing?
Great, thank you. And yeah, nice to relive and think back to 2-3 weeks ago in Edinburgh and to, give it another go. It was my first time at Eurostar and now my first time Eurostar live. And looking forward to some more questions and comments today. Thank you for having me.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Thank you so much. And well, I think, we're ready. So the virtual floor is yours. And please enjoy.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And hello from London, where I'm based. So today I wanted to share the journey that we've been on at Devon. I joined 18 months ago. It's an 18-year-old company that's been helping its customers achieve software excellence, engineering excellence. And I joined with a really privileged role to help my colleagues adopt AI into software development and also to help our customers do the same. And I'm going to share the journey that we've been on and the things that surprised me along the way. Many of these things now in retrospect don't surprise me, but that's what I want to share. Things that I had expectations and then I was surprised after the fact. So that's what I'll talk about. Please keep the questions coming in. There's lots of time at the end for those. So you really look forward to engaging with your thoughts as you hear my thoughts today. So from an organization called Devon, founded in the Netherlands. We have people in Netherlands, India, US, and the UK. And over the years, we've ridden several waves, Agile and DevOps and Cloud. And now we have realized, given what we do, right, adopting AI and helping our customers adopt AI is kind of existential for us. And so that's what we've started doing. And accelerating over the last 18 months. A little bit about me. My whole career basically has been in data and AI in one way or another. And I have, I think, a strong affinity for testing people and quality people, if only because it's those software developers that are the bane of our existence and cause lots of interesting problems. They cause challenges for you as quality and testing professionals in the moment, right, of deploying software. And then data people like me come along one day, 1 week, 1 month, 1 year, 1 decade later, and we scoop up the data that is left behind by software that runs the world. And we try to work out what was happening, what was supposed to happen. And even if we're trying to understand business performance, we're often relying on some of the same things. And so the same approach and obsession with quality and trade-offs is kind of common to data and AI people and quality and testing people, even though we work at very different parts of the process. And so I've been involved in this for quite some time. About 10 years ago, I started to be a data scientist. That's when people started paying me to build predictive systems. And then now I help, as I said, our company and our customers adopt AI. So what I want to talk to you today is about these motivating questions. I always like to, organize these presentations around the questions. And these are questions that, customers ask me directly or explicitly sometimes. But sometimes they ask questions around these questions or in the gaps. And then when you dig down, they realize these are the questions that are on the minds of everyone involved in software as we look at this kind of juggernaut called AI, and we wonder, how is this going to affect our jobs, our products, our lives, and everything? So these are the questions that motivate today, and they spark the surprises. And I want to say up front, I don't have the answer to any of these, but I do have evidence, right, from our experience at Devon since 2023, using AI tools in real software development. So we've been experimenting, and then I'll talk about the journey in a second. But we've been doing this for some time. But the takeaways are already there, right? A lot of hype about AI code completion, replacing developers, replacing engineers, replacing quality and testing, and it will undoubtedly replace some of the tasks that some of those people do. But on the flip side, AI is going to also create a lot more software. And other speakers today will maybe talk about, they certainly did at the conference, not all of that software will be of the same quality that we're used to, right? But you have to go beyond a more efficient and effective tab, a more powerful autocomplete, until you find the value of AI in software development. The other thing I want to get across as a data and AI person is and it was reinforced when I spoke to people at the conference in person. I'm interested in your perspective today. As a data and AI person, most of my career, I have had to go and look under rocks and in old, almost dead databases and in this file share that no one's touched for a decade, and scanned paper forms, right, to get the data I needed to ask the questions that I had. Software development as a life cycle has been spinning off data in your organization that, the more I talk to my colleagues, software professionals, and it was reinforced by some of the table discussions I had in Edinburgh, you are not using that to the full advantage, right? So I'll give some ideas in this discussion, but what I took back to my company from Edinburgh was, we need to take that seriously. And the final thing is, I've trained hundreds of people of different job roles over the last couple of years in AI, and AI adoption is highly personal. What the aha moment where you kind of get it and realize how it can change what you do is quite different from person to person. So yes, we need to understand the use cases, we need to understand the value, but the thing that tips people from skeptical and afraid to skeptical and confident, right, often comes down to something very idiosyncratic. So these are the takeaways that I hope you get, and I'll return at the end to reflect on those as well. So our own AI journey. When I joined, I found a whole bunch of excitement, people trying all kinds of stuff, but all sorts of confusion, lots of talk of robots and blue brains, and the AI will do this and the AI will do that, and inevitably a lot of fear. I work with 400 plus software professionals, and even if the average one is now interested in applying AI and seeing value and not as afraid, there are still people in every company who are holding back for some very valid reasons, right? So last year, the work of 2024, and I'll talk about this, was about bringing that from kind of toy experiments into real work, right? Until we confront any new technology with the reality of doing our real daily work, it does remain that toy, and it's just hard to really see value. This year's work is embedding it across the software development lifecycle, right? So how do we make sure not just developers and quality and testing people, but product people and DevOps are all getting something useful out of it. And the work that we are preparing for, and just earlier today I saw some of our early work on this, is how do we use agents intelligently, right? So not giving all of our data and all of our source code and all of the control to some kind of god AI and just sitting back, but how do we, for our customers, right, say that, well, when you have a 5-person software team from Devon, you also have 25 agents along with them who are helping them not just be more productive, but spot mistakes and deliver more value for the same input. So it's taken time. This job will never finish, right? Which is good for me until AI really takes over. So to that first question that people ask me, and it was reinforced by another talk. I did a training session for leadership of one of our customers, technical leadership of one of our customers this morning, and digesting that afterwards reconfirmed what I'm about to share with you. So which software professionals adopt AI more easily? When I came into this, I had a prediction that was, easy and obvious. I thought, junior people will adopt it, the fastest. They're missing lots of knowledge gaps. They don't want to maybe look silly asking a silly question. And they've now got a box where they can ask those questions. And so, really the barriers to more junior people adopting AI are very low. And so they will go for it. And then I thought it would just be, correlated with your seniority. And I thought that, look, senior people I don't need to know. I don't need to know that. And what I found was something really different. Yes, I was right. It's typically in the organizations that we work with, the youngest, the greenest, the least experienced, who are sort of using it the most. And if you ask them, what would happen if I took it away from you? Then you really see some panic in their eyes. But the counterintuitive thing that I have seen over and over again, and again this morning, is that the next most keen group are not the mid-career people, it's actually the senior people. Because for the senior people, there's this element of, I've been promised this kind of tools for 20 years or 30 years or 40 years, and I finally see that something like this is here. And they are, to be frank, close enough to the end of their career that they feel that they have a craft and they have knowledge that's well above the mechanical work of software development. And so they look at the things that are now commodities and they say, oh, this is a way that I can hone my craft. And then the most challenging group I've found have been the mid-career professionals, right, who are well out of the junior that is aggressively using AI. Tanuja, you have a great question there. I'll come back to that. And to them, they've built some kind of special knowledge, but it's not quite special enough yet to be like a senior professional. And so I've heard a number of, I call them mindset anti-patterns, or things that people say to avoid even trying AI. And that's fine. I'm not here to tell you that you have to use AI, but I'm here to tell you that these are some things that might be holding people back. Maybe you've said the same things. I've said some of the same things at various points in my generative AI journey. So yeah, to your point, your question, Tanuja, it would be really worrying if junior or fresh graduates just accepted everything because they knew someone more senior will check it. So if they are just prompting AI, they get some kind of result and they aggressively accept that, thinking that someone else higher up will check it. Okay, that's good for the job security of the more senior people, but it's not developing the future senior people, right? So if you see junior people in your organization doing this, you need to work out a way to show them a different way. The thing I've heard the most from the kind of mid-career people is something like, well, it takes me longer to correct this than to just write myself, which to me just shows you haven't been creative enough yet in what you apply it to. If you apply it to stuff where you are better than all AI, good for you. Find something else where you're not as good as AI. And if there's nothing where AI is better than you, don't use it. But we all have tasks in our job where it's hard to get started and we're procrastinating. We know we could do things better, but we've never had that extra push. Or, we do have a skill gap when we're trying to move into a slightly different area or understand a code base that's new for us or understand a language that we don't know super well. So, yeah, if you're looking to AI as a thing that's supposed to replace you today, you're kind of looking in the wrong place. And then, some of the senior people I've come across have a sort of attitude of, well, you've showed me an AI solution to ABC, but we've solved that a long time ago. That's just CI/CD, or that's just peer programming, or that's just good agile, or that's just good DevOps. Absolutely. I've yet to meet an organization that is happy and finished with its agile or DevOps transformation or cloud migration, right? So, yeah, if you solved a problem 20 years ago and people didn't adopt it, maybe you can go back to your solution and think with fresh eyes, with AI or not, how could we help people capture that value? And the explanation underlying all of this, what would explain the findings? Like, what would explain their unexpected rushing in of those senior people and those anti-patterns? I don't have the questions that measure this perfectly yet, but there's something really psychological to embracing this kind of technology. And for many software professionals, right, some developers, some quality people, the idea that we are going to use software, which in many cases, we don't know how it was tested, we don't know how it behaves, all it really does is complete words or complete tokens. It's not the kind of software that we know and love. And for some people, that is absolutely terrifying, right? And I get that. Many people get into software on any part of the life cycle because they like to build things that behave in predictable ways. And I think especially quality and testing people like to make those things that are supposed to behave in expected ways behave in even more expected ways. But the biggest barrier, the biggest lever on AI adoption at the individual level, I believe, is how much people can change their mindset and move from tolerating, accepting, and embracing what AI is. So AI is from the family of predictive technologies, right? And predictive technologies are only powerful because they can be wrong. If a predictive technology is always the same, then it's just deterministic software, it's rules. We don't need AI, we don't need machine learning, we don't even need to call it a prediction. So AI is only useful when we have uncertainty, and it's the fact that it doesn't give perfect predictions is what makes it powerful at reducing that uncertainty. But that is deeply unsettling to many people who want the world, or at least their software, to be more perfect, right? It's a bit strange to say, how can we use this thing where its imperfections are a feature to make our thing, which is supposed to behave, predictably, better at doing that? It doesn't make a lot of sense as a sentence, right? It would confuse a large language model. My whole career has been about getting over this. So for me, this is very natural, but that's something to think about. And the way that you can do this in your organization, the key link that I helped our organization break was this equals sign, or we could put a triple equals there. We have to break the programming that we have that AI equals automation, right? Because if we think to our movies and our books and everything, AI is automation, AI is robots, then we need to replace entire processes. We replace humans, the quality barrier goes up, to an unreasonable level, and AI is too hard, right? And what you need to do is find a way to break that link. As soon as you break the link between AI and automation, and you think of it instead as an imperfect technology that can help us reduce our uncertainty about certain decisions that we need to make, then you can look at all your processes, and you only need to find a part of the process where you can augment the process. The quality barrier goes down, and when you adopt this lens, you'll find hundreds of places to apply that in your software development lifecycle. And so what I'm saying here is that, any of us, we adopt technology when we feel it gives us new powers, right? I'm not here to tell you that AI gives you superpowers. Lots of people want to sell you that message, but selling superpowers is really, really difficult. It's a much better idea to think about What do you just need to be more powerful at? Where are the weaknesses in your approach? And when you think about it that way, when you think about experimenting with an imperfect technology that can give you those powers, you take some of the temperature and the pressure and the hype, and you give yourself that room to experiment. And that's what senior people are comfortable with doing, and junior people have no other way of knowing. Yes, Tanuja, I think you're right. In the 10 plus years of senior experience, like you see it as a creativity enhancer and you bring ideas to reality. And that's, I agree with you. That's the way I think about the world. And that's why I work with software and data and AI is to be creative. Some people are a bit different. So that's what we need to not leave them behind. Okay. Next question people ask me, oh, doesn't my data need to be perfect? Don't I need lots of data to make AI work well? Now, something that's been a little bit surprising for me working, speaking to some of your community and working with some of our customers. And, when I speak to customers about how they can use the data they've already been collecting about how their software runs to improve how their software runs, whether using AI or not, in 2025 AD, I still encounter organizations or parts of organizations or products where people log everything that moves, but they never look at the data after diagnosing, except for diagnosing an issue. So they use it as a trail. Probably the original meaning of logs, right, was, oh, when there's a problem, we go back and we look at the logs. And we open logs in text editors and we use Control F, Control C, Control V, Control F, page up, page down to try and work out what the hell happened. Okay, so we collect this incredibly rich data, but we only use it when it's a problem. For me, that sounds crazy. I still meet organizations and products that, maybe they're monitoring the activity of their users, but they're not monitoring the behavior of their users. They're not thinking about the jobs that our users are trying to get done in a digital product and measuring that. They're sort of measuring, well, they clicked this button and the screen changed. Okay, that's a good first step. But that's interesting. A lot of people use an excuse that I have used in the past. Well, I don't have access to production data as an excuse to under-test, right? Now, I've used that excuse. Well, I can't build that predictive product for you because they won't give me access to productive data. I'll talk about some ways that we can get around that. And the biggest, craziest one is not giving developers and product people easy access to what your customers are saying in the support channels. Yeah. So there's so much data going to waste, put it that way. And we need to remember that if we want to use AI, what does AI do? It takes data that we already have, including our prompts, if we're using that kind of system. It transforms the data, right? Sometimes it's simple, sometimes it's complex, and it gives us back predictions. And predictions are just new data, right? And so that raises some questions that we need to get good at asking. What data should we use? Which AI can we use? And how useful are those predictions, right? And if you take that model out into your organization, you think about, which data should we use? What data, what predictions would be useful? Sometimes the penny drops when I do a training with one of our, larger, older customers. Someone who's been there a while says, okay, so we could build a system that stopped us making mistakes that we made 5 and 10 and 15 years ago, but the people who made those have moved on. And that's what I mean, that the data lying around your organization, your product, is a source of institutional knowledge. In Edinburgh, I learned a new word or new meaning of the word oracle, right? Everyone's looking for this oracle, which is a perfect, utopian, unachievable vision of how software is supposed to behave. Maybe you have 10 years of behavior of people using your software. And so software engineers, I think, and quality and testing people, I think, are the people who need to lead software development teams to this way of thinking, right? How do we use this data that we've been collecting in a totally new way? But look, it's hard, especially when it's about future, right? You can spin that around and say, let's just make predictions about the past, right? And again, I talked about how this AI mindset is a bit strange because we want our software to be better, but we have to use intransparent, unexplainable technology to do this if we want to get at some of this data. There's something weird here, right? if you have deployed software 10,000 successful times, that doesn't actually tell you much about how to improve your software more, does it? So the data that gives you the best insight on how to improve your software is the most challenging, disruptive, uncomfortable data that there is, which is the data about your failures, right? So just getting more data that's the same as the previous data doesn't give you any more signal, right? Writing more tests that cover the same code in the same way doesn't help anyone. We need to collect more of the right data, right? And so those 100 unsuccessful deployments, right, hiding in there, they contain so much more signal about how we need to improve our product. And here's the kicker. Sometimes the most important signal around those 100 failures is not quantitative data. It's not 23%. It's not 420 milliseconds. It's not things that we can put on a graph that squiggles over time and then it spikes and we go, uh-oh, something's wrong. The highest signal data about the failures that we have made in developing and deploying software are stored in human language, right? And that's why an imperfect, hallucinating, but sometimes useful technology that can uncover patterns in human language and reformat them in ways that are easy for us to extend into understanding how do we improve this software, that's what AI can do. So AI is not going to look at all this data that I've been talking about and just suck it up and tell you the answers. But if you go into your software development lifecycle and you look for these kinds of sources of data that I'm telling you about, I would call them metadata, right, about your process. You will find that there is some incredibly valuable data there that is currently only used to fix issues one at a time, but which is the key to unlocking sources of Oracle information about how the behavior is, how the software is supposed to behave, or how users in reality expect it to behave, without having to go and ask your users. You should still continue speaking to users and customers, right? What I'm saying is there's a huge amount of hidden signal in your organization, but it's not stored as nice little graphs that squiggle over time. It's stored in human language, right? And we now have a technology we can use to unlock that and find things that 5 years ago, if I was saying this to you, I couldn't tell you what the answer was about how you would go and solve this problem. So if you look at the market in the way Gartner have done, all of the products, all of the hype, all of the spending is around the left-hand side of the cycle. Fine. Let's use AI to augment the design, delivery, testing of our products. That's not the hardest part about software. Running things, adapting our legacy software, right, to new requirements, integrating software from a new company that we have acquired, or disintegrating software when we've sold a part of a company and it's taking some technology with us. That's where the future is, right? And that's what agents need. So you've probably heard lots of buzz about agents, and there's lots of hype about agents. And so in sort of good kind of American analyst language, the left-hand side is the table stakes, right? This is how you use AI in your day-to-day work. What will differentiate software organizations over time is how they get better at the right-hand side. And you can't get better at that right-hand side. You can't set agents free to understand and suggest modifications to your code base and additional tests unless you're doing a better job of not wasting that data on the right-hand side. So the take-home message here is the things I've had to do for the data that I've used to answer the questions in my career, we would do anything, people like me, for the signal that is just lying right in front of you, And it doesn't require that you get access, hack into the production database. It's all of the other sources of data around this process that you need to get hold of. Next question and next surprise. Where in the software development lifecycle is most additional value created? And the surprise for me, and again, looking back, I should have seen why. Again, from the outside, all of this software, AI that just writes software, GitHub Copilot, Cursor, Lovable, it looks totally magic. And so it's understandable why the hype and the money goes into AI that writes code. Because people who've never developed software still think that typing code is hard because they haven't done that before. But typing code has never really been the problem. right? The harder problems have been how do we build the right things in the first place, and how do we build them in a way that makes them maintainable over time? And there's a trade-off. We can more quickly build the right things, but we might not build them as well. And we are constantly trading off these two things. So the thing that perspective misses is that most of the software operating in the world today, most of the software that will be worked on tomorrow already exists. We love to talk about greenfield, and AI is amazing at creating any kind of greenfield application, but that's not what most software developers do. Most software developers are trying to migrate some out of support Java thing from 7 years ago into some new framework, which the company hasn't used before. And so it's not fully approved. And so they need to, and getting there also relies on unpicking some middleware. And we need to unpack this monolith, blah, blah, blah. Real, like, enterprise software development, challenging software development is very different than the comic of software development that we see in a demo of a tool like Lovable. And the curious thing here is that we often talk about legacy as a burden. But if you think back to what I said about data, if, thanks to large language models, your code base, your history of code changes over time, not the commit messages, because they're usually not informative, right? But your release notes, your customer complaints, even the crazy thing that salespeople have said, all of that language encoded data, legacy gives you an advantage now, right? If there's a new thing that your product needs to do, and if you've had 3 attempts to do that in the past, you have an advantage over a startup that's never actually done it before. And now there's a lot of work, right, to turn that data into the kind of fuel that these AI can use. But it's quite a change to say that if we use AI to unlock the signal in the full data around your software development lifecycle, well, having been there and done that and made mistakes and improved it is actually an incredible source of advantage. So how did we do that? How did we quantify and see this difference? So we did experiments, right? In Greenfield, we gave one team of new people to our organization the same set of requirements. We gave some experienced development team same requirements, but said you can't use AI. Almost impossible now, but this was last July. And we gave another team of experienced people, same requirement, use as much AI as you can find, sign up for anything. There's no customer data in any of this. And yes, in a purely greenfield setting, yeah, you can go a lot faster with AI. When we have done this in legacy application modernization, we do a lot of that. Yeah, the 2 to 5 times promise is just not there. There is not a big button that just migrates this. Many people are still looking for the lift and shift solution, which anyone who's been involved in lift and shift knows you shouldn't do it, right? But what does happen is that some parts of the process become 10 times faster. And this is when we started to see that quality and testing is kind of such an important part here. If you look at how much development improves in speed between a high-performance team not using AI and a high-performance team using AI, yeah, there's a gain there, but it's not that interesting. The more interesting gain is QA, right? And we've seen that pattern come up over and over again. So for us, the first place that we try to get our customers to adopt AI is in quality and testing, because if we need useful data with signals to make AI give us reliable, testable results, quality and testing has an advantage, right? Especially if we're using it to augment what we already do on the software that's already running. The benefit it's already running, we've already created lots of data. So 5 years ago, we started to get into automated testing in a big way. But then we had customers resist because they said, oh, if a human writes all of these automated test cases, we now have a new code base to manage. Okay. But last August, I kind of had one of my aha moments that, seeing a large language model update automated tests based on changes in the software, not with 90 or 95 or 99% accuracy, but 100% accuracy, right, in some cases. And so the what that showed me is we can be much more ambitious about what we test, right, and how much we test. Last year, I went to an event where I saw a graph of how many testers there were per developer in the 1960s, and it was kind of 1 to 1. And the ratio is very different now, right? And we can say, yes, developers should test everything. But why is there still quality and testing functions? Because there needs to be people in any software organization looking after the higher order problems. And so when I saw that a large language model, creating automated tests is sort of easy to do with any kind of Copilot type tool. But when I saw that we could have an AI tool look at the changes in the code and update the automated tests, that made me feel quite confident that quality and testing people have a lot to offer here. And so there's some numbers there, and we can share the slides later of the kinds of numbers that we've seen. They're not 200, 300, 400%. They are for certain kinds of tasks across quality and testing. We get really nice results, right? And the reason quality and testing is important is because what you do doesn't always, but it can change the behavior of developers, right? So if developers are always looking for more speed, or if organizations are always pressuring software development to deliver more and more and more stuff, you are some of the only people holding back the tide, right? And the good thing is AI creates value, where it actually changes the path that we're on, when it leads to some kind of learning. And when I look at software organizations and I look what great quality and testing people do, they help the software organization learn about how to improve what it does. Sometimes that's about speed. Mostly it's about customer experience, right? And being able to be more ambitious about what the software does. And that leads to, a better market position at the end of the day. So for me, speed is very hard to measure without measuring quality, first of all. And I know there's a huge debate in your field about how to measure quality as well. But I'm just saying that the work that you do, you have access to these signals, and these signals are some of the most likely signals that will change the behavior of other people. And quality and testing in the long run is about changing how humans develop software, and eventually how AI develops software. But it will always be about changing human behavior, even if humans are monitoring AI in some future that I don't know when it's coming. On that point, a lot of leaders ask me, okay, I've bought a bunch of tools that all cost $20, pounds, euros a month, and they all say they increase productivity by 10, 20%. Why does the business not feel that, right? So let's remember that it took economists a very long time to find benefits from the introduction of the personal computer, right? And in some areas, they're still looking for those benefits. It wasn't until the computers got networked together and we started to stop doing certain things and doing new things that there was actually a productivity improvement from the adoption of the computer. The first thing we did with the computer is we just replicated our paper-based workflows, but now typing them onto a screen, right? So people did more stuff, but it didn't lead to any organizational level benefit. And that's just a fundamental problem of anything. When it gets cheaper, right, and AI is making certain things cheaper, not always the right things, but it's making things cheaper, we get more of it, right? We're going to get more code. A lot of studies now are saying that, the size of code bases is expanding, right? But we can also get more tests, we can get more iterations, and we can get more data. And I'm still surprised when I go and speak to some of our customers and they say, yeah, we're agile and blah, blah, blah. And then they say, well, we need to ship our software to the DevOps team and they will deploy it in 2 weeks' time. Have you read any of the words in that sentence recently? So there's a big gap between how technologists think about this productivity and how the business feels it. And, every tool says $20 for 10 to 20%. And there's something very interesting hiding here and surprising for many of us. For many technology people, it's been comfortable to think about how we automate other people. Right? What's the job of software? Why do organizations use software? Organizations have been using software to do more with less long before AI came along. Right? I hope that's not a contentious thing to say. And when ChatGPT came out, lots of people said, okay, finally we can get rid of customer service. And organizations like Klarna said, AI can do that way better. And they got rid of all their customer service people, or they said they did. Maybe they were planning to do that anyway, and they used AI as the excuse. And now they've realized, gee, customer service is really hard, and humans only ask customer service about stuff that is difficult to resolve. So maybe we do need humans. What AI is doing is now shining the light on people like you and me who today and yesterday and tomorrow do a lot of repetitive work. Let's just be clear. Developers, everyone involved in the software development lifecycle does a lot of repetitive work. And in the past, we could tell ourselves stories and sing lullabies about how this was creative and important. And by repeating it many, many times, we got really good at it. What AI is doing is shining the thing that we have done to other people's jobs on us, right? And it's not until we recognize that and use that moment, right, to think about how we do our work, not just as individuals, as teams, and maybe finish the job on some of those things that we tried to do in terms of agility and DevOps and cloud. So we're not going to feel that organizations can deliver software that's twice as good until we develop software in a different way. And AI is only part of the puzzle in that, but it's turning up the temperature on all of us to think about how we reform our organizations in different ways. So again, organizations have always had trouble aggregating productivity, even before AI came along. AI is both increasing the temperature on us to get on that, right? And to really think things that I'm sure you've said. Quality is everyone's responsibility. I'm sure many people on this call have said that to their colleagues, and I've said that to my colleagues. How do we make that true? A number of people in your field, right, have told us how to make that true 5 or 10 or 20 years ago. We've always had reasons that made that difficult. So even if you don't use AI to get there, don't waste the moment. Don't waste the hype, right? To use AI to shine a light on the things that still haven't changed, that should have changed quite some time ago. Okay, so if we do all of that, when will we feel like this AI transformation has taken place? Well, the first thing to realize is that we have had this conversation before. Maybe it's a bit different now with AI. Maybe hype is more. There's something about AI right now that it's out in the world and everyone's using it, that we can't pretend that we are unique in our world. But I think that if you have been around for some of these previous conversations, no code, model-driven development, frameworks and libraries, visual programming, high-level programming languages, we've been here before, right? So only people who've never been here before, and this is probably the responsibility of the people who've been here for a bit longer to help the new people and their organizations understand. We have seen things disrupt how we do our work, right? And it's not really about the technology that determines whether we make something of that or not. It's about how we integrate it into our ways of working. Because we're still here, right? Why does software exist? It doesn't yet exist for its own sake. And I don't know if that's 5 or 50 years away, honestly. But the point of software, right, is to scale human organizational outcomes to some new level, right? And sometimes that does mean automating other people's work. And it now means also automating away some of the tasks that we have held dear. So we can't measure it by the amount of code. We can't measure it by the number of agents. We can't measure it by headcount reduction. We can't measure it by the number of magic wand icons that your developers have put all across your product. It's only measurable by how the people doing the work feel, right? So Agile gets a lot of stick, has a lot of fans. It's really boils down to thinking about how we work in a different way, right? And I know when we try and do this in larger and larger organizations, enterprise antibodies activate, and they do everything they can to kill agility. So for me, the way that I want to see software teams experience AI is that it makes them more agile, right? It reduces the cost of making mistakes. It reduces the friction in rolling things back. It makes it easier to make these trade-offs between speed and new features and cleaning up technical debt, right? That's a hell of a trade-off for software leaders and software teams to have to make. If we can use AI in the ways I've been talking about to unlock data that is just sitting there waiting for you to do something with it, if we can use that to finish the job on some things that have been really, really hard to do, or just do those things 10% better, we can make our teams happier and better at what they do. And I think there's really a moment here for quality and testing people to have your time in the sun, right? It may not feel like it right now in June 2025, but there is an avalanche of horrifying AI generated code coming at the world, right? And for teams and organizations that have not been thoughtful about how they integrate AI in their development process, there's more work coming for you folks. But to do that work efficiently, I think it makes sense also for you to think about AI becoming part of a new way of working, which hopefully over time just feels like an old way of working, right? So, to summarize, we talked about who adopts and my surprises there. We talked about my pleasant surprise that you people are sitting on all the data that you need and more. You just need to activate it. And AI is part of the way that you activate it to make it more useful to humans. I shared some numbers about how much value has been created, how quickly in quality and testing in the work we do. And we've talked about the challenges here, right? So hopefully it's clear that takeaway message I started with, right? Code completion and generating lots of bad code, we need to work out what to do with it, but we can't probably attack that head on. Let's think about software development as a life cycle, right? And once we do that and we think about AI as a predictive technology that helps us use the data that we have to solve some of these old problems and reduce those trade-offs, that's where it becomes useful. But there's no killer use case right there. That's really hard work. And it's really requires a lot of introspection and a lot of looking at ourselves and not just blaming other people for our problems. You have all this data, and I really hope you use it. And if I come back next year, I'm going to share a bunch of ways that I took inspiration from what I heard in Edinburgh and have helped some of our teams start to build some solutions in that space. And if that AI adoption moment hasn't happened for you yet, don't despair. It is very personal, right? But I don't think putting your head in the sand and refusing to use it is a feasible strategy. Don't know if there's session feedback here, but if there is, please give it. This is how you can reach me. And so now we have time to engage with some questions that have come in.
Yeah, let's go for them. And yeah, thank you. You can rate the session here in the chat.
I tried to some of them along the way. I don't know if I could get it.
No, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. And again, the conversations that have been sparking here in the chat have been brilliant as well. So thank you so much there for the talk. And yeah, we have a couple of questions here at the Q&A section. But if anybody still has another question, we might have time for 3 of them. So the first one that we have is, if an AI system makes a harmful decision, who is truly accountable? The user, the developer, or the machine?
I mean, if you've used any AI product, you've seen that little disclaimer. AI output may be incorrect. Please check everything. Right, so I've not seen an AI company yet that's rushing to take responsibility for anything that happens. So every downstream use of AI is on the human and the organization, right? And now the EU AI Act puts some extra requirements on some companies, right, whose products we then use. And I didn't talk about, other people have talked about how do you test what AI, especially large language models, do. Get into that from where you are today, and you will never run out of work, right? Until AI takes over the world.
Perfect. And we have kind of a follow-up question. And those reliance on AI dull our ethical reasoning or critical thinking skills? What's your take on this?
Yeah, it can if we use it in the wrong way, right? So, but so does all technology, right? So, I remember when I was at school, and one computer was introduced into the classroom, and it had a CD-ROM drive and encyclopedia on it. And there was a lot of discussion amongst parents and teachers and in the news. Will humans not learn how to look things up? I'm really lucky that I lived and was educated through that transition, because then when I was teaching undergraduate political scientist students in the 2000s and 2010s, they would email me questions where I would just say, put it in Google. Like, what are you doing? So humans have lots of incentives to be lazy, right? And our brain is wired to take easy pathways, right? Because it takes a lot of brain energy or a lot of large language model tokens to do complicated and useful things, to do reasoning, to not just go for the easy thing and the obvious thing takes energy, right? Quality and testing people, I think, are kind of built for this marathon, right? Um, Nothing I've said today, I think, is something that you haven't said a version of for your whole career, right? And it's good that you worry about these broader issues. And ultimately, some of these are societal and organizational, right? Most of what I have seen actually happen with real software development is that the people who already have those reasoning skills and already have an ethical compass, they know just what to do with this technology and how to do it the right way. The question I don't have the answer for you is, how do we create the new people? How do we ensure people with 2 years experience navigate some of the challenges that we've had? Now, we're not going to have a shortage of challenges and screw ups. So that's terrifying, but also good, right? Like, we're going to apply technology the wrong ways, and we're going to have to learn from that, right? So it goes back to what I said. Humans are incredible at learning when we have the right incentives. So if you're out there, don't waste the opportunity that AI might present, both on the upside and the downside, to revisit some things that have been too hard for you to do. Say perhaps it's been hard to get the level and depth of testing that you have wanted developers to do themselves and not wait for you to do it. How can you take what you know and make it as easy as possible for them to start that, right? To get them out of that procrastination jungle. We have a new question from Bart. What about the
Perfect.
proven
Let's,
lessening of human reasoning when using AI?
yeah,
Quite a debate about that paper that came out. Obviously, the title is sexy and the scans of brains. Look at the sample size in the paper. The first set of the experiments, the sample size is 54 people. The final set of data on which the comparison is made, 18 people. Okay. There's a lot of noise in brain scans, and if 18 people and that sample degradation is good for you to make a decision, that's fine. A lot of the anti-vaccination noise in the world comes from a paper published in the Lancet Medical Journal where the sample size was 8. So anytime you see someone on LinkedIn trump a new finding about this or that, so I'm a social scientist by training, so I had lots of experience reading those things. Read the paper or upload the paper to your favorite large language model and ask for a critical take, a hype take, and a middle take. So we don't know yet, and it's too early to say, but we do know that things that make humans lazier, they will use.
sure.
Yeah, a few
Um,
more questions I can answer.
yeah, more questions are popping now, and yeah, it's just so like it's such a great topic, and there's so many things to go into. But you have already shared your email there in the question, the Q&A chat box. So if anybody wants to continue the conversations, they are available there. And yeah, it's that's what's so cool of meeting in person, that you get more and more inputs, and then when you come online, you have more of them. So we're very happy to have you here, Shaun. We hope we can meet you again in person soon and also online. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for all the engagement and really appreciate everyone tuning up. Yeah, look forward to interacting again.
Thanks
Bye.
a million. We'll meet again. Cheers.